Friends, we're lucky today to be graced by a special guest. Come on up, Lincoln.
Heyo, what's up guys? Today we're going to be checking out what Aunt Spiker was looking at in James and the Giant Peach. Take it away, Mom. Mrs. Whitney.
Bye, Lincoln. Thanks for the intro. Okay, so where we left off last time, Aunt Spiker was looking up at the tree and her mouth was agape and she couldn't believe her eyes. Let's find out what Roald Dahl said that she saw up on that tree. "What's the matter with you?" Aunt Sponge demanded. "It's growing," Aunt Spiker cried. "It's getting bigger and bigger." "It's growing? Well, what is?" "The peach, of course." "You're joking." "Well, look at it for yourself." "But my dear Spiker, that's perfectly ridiculous. That's impossible. That's... Now wait just a minute. No, that can't be right. No, yes. Great Scott! That thing really is growing. "It's nearly twice as big already," Aunt Spiker shouted. "It can't be true. It is true. It must be a miracle. Watch it. Watch it." "I am watching it." "Great heavens alive!" Aunt Spiker yelled. "I can actually see the thing bulging and swelling before my very eyes." That would be very peculiar. We've all seen fruit grow and it takes a long time, right? Chapter 7. The two women and the small boy stood absolutely still on the grass underneath the tree, gazing up at this extraordinary fruit. James's little face was glowing with excitement. His eyes were big and bright as two stars. Oh, that is a beautiful simile. Absolutely beautiful. Big and bright as two stars. He could see the peach swelling larger and larger, as clearly as if it were a balloon being blown up. Oh, I can visualize that beautifully too. Can't you see when you blow up a balloon how it just inflates and you can see it right before your very eye? I love it. In another half a minute, it was the size of a melon. In another half a minute, it was twice as big again. "Just look at it growing," Aunt Spiker cried. "Will it ever stop?" Aunt Sponge shouted, waving her fat arms and starting to dance around in circles. And now it was so big it looked like an enormous butter-colored pumpkin dangling from the top of the tree. "Get away from that tree trunk, you silly boy," Aunt Spiker yelled. "The slightest shake and I'm sure it'll fall off. It must weigh 20 or 30 pounds at least." The branch that the peach was growing upon was beginning to bend over further and further because of the weight. "Stand back!" Aunt Sponge shouted. "It's coming down! The branch is going to break!" But the branch didn't break. It simply bent over more and more as the peach got heavier and heavier. And then it went on growing. In another minute, this mammoth fruit was as large and round and fat as Aunt Sponge herself, and probably just as heavy. "It has to stop now!" Aunt Spiker yelled. "It can't go on forever!" But it didn't stop. Soon it was the size of a small car and reached halfway to the ground. Both aunts were now hopping around the tree, clapping their hands and shouting all sorts of silly things in their excitement. "Hallelujah!" Aunt Spiker shouted. "What a peach! What a peach!" "Terrifico!" Aunt Sponge cried out. "Magnifico! Splendifico! And what a meal!" Of course, Sponge was thinking about eating it. I would too. "It's still growing!" I know! As for James, he was so spellbound by the whole thing that he could only stand and stare and murmur quietly to himself. "Oh, isn't it beautiful? It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." "Be quiet, you little twerp!" Aunt Spiker snapped, happening to overhear him. "It's none of your business." She doesn't know that James is the person who made this magic happen. "That's right," Aunt Sponge declared. "It's got nothing to do with you whatsoever. Keep out of it." "Look," Aunt Spiker shouted. "It's growing faster now. It's speeding up." "I see it, Spiker. I do. Bigger and bigger grew the peach, bigger and bigger and bigger. Then at last, when it had become nearly as tall as the tree that it was growing on, as tall and wide, in fact, as a small house, the bottom part of it gently touched the ground, and there it rested. Here's a picture of it growing. Wow, it's big. You can see Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker looking at it. I don't see James in that picture. Whoo, it's big. It can't fall off now, Aunt Sponge shouted. It's stopped growing, Aunt Spiker cried. No, it hasn't. Yes, it has. It's slowing down, Spiker. It's slowing down, but it hasn't stopped yet. You watch it. There was a pause. It has now. I believe you're right. Do you think it's safe to touch it? I don't know. We better be careful. Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker began walking slowly around the peach, inspecting it very cautiously from all sides. They were like a couple of hunters who had just shot an elephant, and were not quite sure whether it was dead or alive. It could cause quite a bit of trouble, a giant peach like that. And the massive round fruit towered over them so high that they looked like midgets from another world beside it. The skin of the peach was very beautiful, a rich buttery yellow with patches of brilliant pink and red. Aunt Sponge advanced cautiously and touched it with the tip of one finger. It's ripe, she cried. It's just perfect. Now see here, Spiker, why don't we go and get us a shovel right away and dig out a great big hunk of it for you and me to eat? No, Aunt Spiker said. Not yet. Why ever not? Because I say so. But I can't wait to eat some, Aunt Sponge cried out. She was watering at the mouth now, and a thin trickle of spit was running down one side of her chin. My dear Sponge, Aunt Spiker said slowly, winking at her sister and smiling a sly. Sly is a word that they use to describe a tricky fox, too. You know she's thinking. A sly, thin-lipped smile. There's a pile of money to be made out of this if only we can handle it right. Just wait and see. Chapter 8. The news that a peach almost as big as a house had suddenly appeared in someone's garden spread like wildfire across the countryside, and the next day a stream of people came scrambling up the steep hill to gaze upon this marvel. Quickly Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker called in carpenters and had them build a strong fence around the peach to save it from the crowd, and at the same time these two crafty women stationed themselves at the front gate with a large bunch of tickets and started charging everyone who was coming in. Roll up, Aunt Spiker yelled. Only 1 shilling to see a giant peach. Half price for children under 6 weeks old, Aunt Sponge shouted. 6 weeks old, under 6 weeks old. My goodness, that baby is only a month and a half old, and he still has to pay. One at a time, please. Don't push. You're all going to get in. Hey, you! Come back here. You haven't paid. By lunchtime, the whole place was a seething mass of men, women, and children, all pushing and shoving to get a glimpse of this miraculous fruit. Helicopters were landing. Oh, I love this description so much. Listen to this. Helicopters were landing like wasps all over the hill, and out of them poured swarms of newspaper reporters, cameramen, and men from the television companies. I love that I can visualize that. Swarms of people coming out of the helicopters that were like wasps in the air. So many of them. There's all the people. And Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker being sure to collect all their money. Let's see. It'll cost you double to bring in a camera, Aunt Spiker shouted. All right, they answered. We don't care. And the money came rolling into the pockets of those two greedy aunts. And we readers know they're not going to give any of that to James. But while all this excitement was going on outside, poor James was forced to stay locked in his bedroom, peeping through the bars of his window at the crowds below. That is just terrible. The disgusting little brute will only get in everyone's way if we let him wander about, Aunt Spiker had said earlier that morning. Oh, please, he had begged. I haven't met any other children for years and years, and there are going to be lots of them down for me to play with, and perhaps I could help you out with the tickets. Cut it out, Aunt Sponge had snapped. Your Aunt Spiker and I are about to become millionaires. The last thing we need is the likes of you messing things up and getting in the way. Later, when the evening of the first day came and all the people had gone home, the aunts unlocked James's door and ordered him to go outside to pick up all the banana skins and orange peels and bits of paper that the crowd had left behind. Could I please have something to eat first, he asked. I haven't had a thing all day. No, they shouted, kicking him out the door. We're too busy to make food. We are counting our money. But it's dark, cried James. Get out, they yelled, and stay out until you've cleaned up all the mess. The door slammed, and the key turned in the lock. Wow, so he can't even come back in. Chapter 9. Hungry and trembling, James stood alone out in the open, wondering what to do. The night was all around him now, and high overhead a wild white moon was riding in the sky. Oh, again with his beautiful descriptions, I can visualize the large white moon riding in the sky. There was not a sound, not a movement anywhere. Most people, and especially small children, are often quite scared of being out of doors and alone in the moonlight. Everything is so deadly quiet, and the shadows are so long and black, and they keep turning into strange shapes that seem to move as you look at them, and the slightest little snap of a twig makes you jump. James felt exactly like that now. He stared straight ahead with large, frightened eyes, hardly daring to breathe. Not far away in the middle of the garden, he could see the giant peach towering over everything else. Surely it was even bigger tonight than ever before, and what a dazzling sight that would be. The moonlight was shining and glinting on its great curving sides, turning them to crystal and silver. It looked like an enormous silver ball lying there in the grass, silent and mysterious and wonderful. Can you see James down there at the very bottom? And how large that is. Oh my goodness. And the white moon riding in the sky. Whew, that is some peach. And then all at once, little shivers of excitement started running over the skin on James's back. Something else, he told himself, something stranger than ever this time is going to happen again. And soon. He was sure of it. He could feel it coming. He looked around him, wondering what on earth it was going to be. The garden lay soft and silver in the moonlight. The grass was wet with dew, and millions of dewdrops were sparkling and twinkling like diamonds around his feet. And now suddenly the whole place, the whole garden, seemed alive with magic. Almost without knowing what he was doing, as though drawn by some powerful magnet, James Henry Trotter started walking slowly toward the giant peach. He climbed over the fence that surrounded it, and he stood directly beneath it, staring up at its great bulging sides. He put out a hand and touched it gently with the tip of one finger. It felt soft and warm and slightly furry, like the skin of a baby mouse. He moved a step closer and rubbed his cheek lightly against the soft skin, and then suddenly, while he was doing this, he happened to notice that right beside him and below him, close to the ground, there was a hole in the side of the peach. So, James is going to go inside that hole. I want you tonight, or this afternoon, to draw what James saw when he went inside that peach. Let me show you the illustration that Quentin Blake drew again. So, do you think that there are rooms inside that peach? Do you think there are tunnels? Is it all one giant room? Is it a bunch of peach inside? Is there a seed in the middle? I can't wait to hear and see what you think is inside that peach when we see each other again tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.